Pedro Silva.
I'm Andrew Nellies.
And this is
Drinking with the Saints.
So our guest superstar here, Andrew. So who are we going to talk about today? Whom we're going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about Saint Anthony of Padua, patron saint of things that are lost. Saint Anthony was born to a wealthy family, but he ended up leaving that history of affluence to join an abbey in the capital of Portugal, where he studied Latin and theology. And from there, he went on to enter the priesthood, became ordained, and he joined the Franciscan order. And he was well known for his eloquent speaking, his homily writing. He was a brilliant teacher. It was said that he used to teach the fish in the water. They would come out of the water, and he would preach to them, and they would listen. Really, really powerful. He fell ill, and his all the other members of the Franciscan order, they took care of him, tried to nurse him back to health. And a story of his that is extremely powerful and remembered so much is how he became known as the patron of lost things. And according to the story, Saint Anthony had a book of the Psalms. And in this book were written a lot of notes and comments, and that guided his teaching of the novices at the Hermitage. And he loved this book. This all took place before the printing press, so if he wanted to copy this book and have a duplicate of it in case he lost one, he would have to do it by hand or have someone do it by hand, which of course is a long, tedious process.
Oh, good Lord.
So
have mercy.
Yeah, so this book meant so much to him. It was extremely valuable to him. And unfortunately, one of the novices at the Hermitage left the order, stole his book, and took it with him.
Savage.
Indeed, very savage.
Savage.
Yeah, and so, but Saint Anthony wasn't done. He had the answer, so he began to pray, which needs to be our response to everything, is prayer. So he began to pray that either he would find the missing book, or it would be returned to him, whichever event had happened. And sure enough, the novice who stole the book not only brought the book back to him, but he also rejoined the order. So Saint Anthony is now known as the patron of lost things, which my family is always, we've all grown up praying to him, asking for his help finding things that are lost. I keep asking for my sanity. I still haven't found it. but he's someone you can always turn to for help.
So cool story, actually. When I was a youth minister, my pastor, Father Paul, his mother had this profound devotion to Saint Anthony. And of course, so did he. And when he went to visit her one time in Canada, he lost his keys to his car. So his mom said a prayer, went inside, grabbed the keys to her car, and said, "Use these." And he's like, "Pedro, surely enough, the car door opened." And he was able to get the keys that were locked in the car.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one of the, so amazing. He's like, it was her car keys, two different cars, two different makers, and the key. She just like, he's like, "What did you do?" Said a prayer, Saint Anthony.
Wow. That trust, that confidence in his intercession.
That's right. It's so awesome. And one of the other things too, I remember was in the shrine of Saint Therese in Saint Antonio. Shout out to Daniel. And I saw this. It was the first time I ever saw the statue of Saint Anthony. It's him holding the book with the child Jesus standing up on it. And for him, the Bible, his prayers, it was always flesh. Like Jesus was always before him. There wasn't just this intellectual desire to know, but it was this intentional pursuit of knowing a person. So much so that the words themselves became incarnate before him. Always before. Jesus was always before him in his study. So like, as you approach books, man, like in your own spiritual life, like, is that sometimes when you approach it? Is that your experience? And if it is, like, what are some ways that can help our listeners here kind of have more of an intentional pursuit of knowing a person rather than just pursuing knowledge for knowledge's sake?
Yeah, so actually that's been something that I've been praying about a lot recently, especially as I consider the whole theological debate about how our Protestant brothers and sisters, they believe in sola scriptura,
Yes.
but we of course believe in sacred tradition as well.
And the understanding.
Yes, of course, of course. And what really stands out to me about this whole debate is to say that the Bible is the only source of reliable revelation from God is to say that God no longer communicates to his people, no longer reveals himself to his people, and he's now a distant creator, which takes a deist point of view instead of a theist point of view.
That's right.
And so with praying about and reflecting on and studying these books of teaching that other people have written, it can be an extremely powerful way of encountering God, because I truly believe that these books, especially the ones that have the imprimatur, I don't know if I'm saying
imprimatur.
I don't speak. I don't speak church. Yeah, like especially books like that have like official church approval. That these are reliable sources of teaching as well, revelation from God, and you can have an encounter with God in these books because these people have written these like, for example, Saint Anthony. They have written these tremendously profound works, and you can encounter him in that because they encountered him in writing it. So you're kind of discovering what they discovered when they wrote these things, and that's been something that I've really been praying about a lot recently.
For me, it's when I read, it's reading with the heart, with a sense of empathy. That Dr. Peter Crave says it's really interesting. People don't pick up Lord of the Rings just to read Lord of the Rings for Lord of the Rings' sake. Yes, Office Angel is laughing because I always bring up Lord of the Rings, and I love Lord of the Rings. And Dr. Peter Crave says that people pick up the book to be in dialogue and to get to know the person of Tolkien. Because Lord of the Rings, it really kind of reveals the heart of Tolkien. Like his loves, with his admiration for truth. Like the theme of the book is hope. Maybe that was something that Tolkien struggled with, was hope. And he was able to put that in word form that even until today is like one of the greatest works ever read. It was received very poorly by the critics, but the people spoke, and I mean, here we are. 3 movies later. I don't count the Hobbit movies. Yes. But no, and with praying with the heart, reading with the heart, receiving with the heart, empathy. I think that's what the saints really bring to the table, is this profound gift of vulnerability and empathy.
You're absolutely right. And a story comes to mind that actually was just shared with me recently. My girlfriend Monica was telling me that when she was in the darkest part of her life and she was feeling really lost, she was miserable, didn't have a sense of worth, was struggling with habits that she would never go back to now. She prayed to Saint Anthony. She said, "Saint Anthony, help me find myself." And that's when she started to rise out of that darkness, that dark place. And I love who she is today, and so I'm really grateful for Saint Anthony for intervening for her in that way.
That is beautiful. And just to bring up the last point, it's funny because as we were talking about before, you're saying is like, not even Saint Francis like the Dominicans, So there's this battle between the Franciscans and the Dominicans. I tend to be more of a Dominican.
Okay.
That's my.
Won't hold that against.
It's okay. That okay.
No,
But Saint Dominic, after he would read a book, he would reverence it, and he would kiss it, because he saw every book as an extension of the Word. And it's like to kind of like bring it around to what you're saying, is every book is an extension of the Word. And people like Dominic, Saint Anthony of Padua, Saint Francis, Saint Thomas Aquinas, these great Dominicans and Franciscans, they were great theologians because it wasn't at a desk where their thoughts began, but it was on their knees before the Blessed Sacrament. Like that's where it all begins. Like a good theologian does theology on his knees. So if we want to be great theologians, and all of us are called to some degree, to be great theologians. The best way to do that is before the Blessed Sacrament. The best way to do that is to not just pursue the Bible for the sake of knowledge, but pursue it intentionally to know a person. And I feel like it's a lot of times it's missing. It's like the heart. They all have hearts burning with zeal, not only for truth, which is the person of Jesus, but also as an effect of that relationship in the way that they pursued the people of God, pursuing to care for the suffering Christ within their hearts.
Were not our hearts burning within us when you opened the scriptures?
Go to Emmaus. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was a person. It's a person. All this and more at
Drinking
with the Saints. Thank you, Saint Anthony of Padua.
Pray for us.